Hello, and welcome to a video on fonts and font sizes shortcuts. So first of all, let's talk about the different fonts that appear when you click the drop-down arrow for the fonts. You might have a different heading or body, and headings mean the headings in a report, and the body is the body text. You might have different theme fonts based on when you go to design, theme, depending on the theme chosen here. You can see when I pass my mouse over, all the fonts are being previewed and shown here. So if I choose, say, Facet, and I go back to Home, you can see now I have a different font than the first one. If I go back to Design and I choose, say, Integral, I go back here to Home, and now I have a different set of theme fonts. So yours might be different. The recently used fonts will be different on your screen as well, because these are the fonts that have been chosen by the person sitting at your computer. And they figure if you chose it once, you'll probably want to do it again. So instead of having to scroll down all the way to the bottom here in alphabetical order and find the T's, since you just used it, it just shows it up here automatically. So let's next talk about how you can quickly get to a font if it's not shown here in recently used fonts. Let's say that I wanted to change this title to Tahoma. So normally what I see students do is they click the drop down arrow, they grab the scroll bar, they go all the way down to the bottom of the alphabet, and there it is. Well, there's a much faster way. Highlight your text, click the drop down arrow, and the font is already selected here that the characters have been formatted with. So all you have to do is start typing the letters of the fonts, and it will jump to the first one. So since I typed a T, it's going to highlight the first one. But as soon as I type an A, it jumps down here because it's going to start matching letter for letter. Now, I might have to keep typing more letters, but I can see now I've got Tahoma highlighted. So as soon as I click it, now that appears at the top of my recently used list. So if I wanted Rockwell, it's not listed here. So again, I'm going to click up here, type an R, it jumps to the first R. Now that's not what I needed, the first one shown here. So I'm just going to keep typing O, and there it is. And then I can choose it, and again, it goes to the top of the recently used list. All right, so that's a shortcut, is just typing the font and having it jump to it in the list. Now let's talk about the difference between sans serif fonts and serif fonts. I have these lines created in a sans serif font. It happens to be this font right here, and I have these lines created in a serif font, okay, Times New Roman. So what's the difference? Well, a sans serif font, the word sans right here is a French word that means without. So it's without these little strokes. Now if you look up here on the Rockwell font, you can see that there is a line at the bottom of the F, and there's a little line coming down here. You can see these are called feet on the bottom. Like you've got feet on the N, you've got little strokes on the end of the S's, little stroke on the end of the A, on the ends, the D at the top, and the feet. Those are called serifs. Now, serif fonts are used for body text, because those serifs, these little lines at the bottom or these little balls on the end, they actually help guide your eyes while reading and make it easier to read. So when do you use serif font? For most everything except for display type. That's what you use sans serif for, because it's clean and modern, it's easy to read. So for instance, this heading up here, you would want to change that to a sans serif font. Headings, newspaper headlines, think of street signs. Those are all in sans serif font because they're easy to read, they attract your attention, they're clean and modern. And you certainly want to attract the attention of the drivers, so that's why all the street signs are in sans serif. Now, some people think that only the ones that say sans in them are sans serif. No, they're not. Verdana, that's a sans serif. You can see that one has no little strokes on the end, but it doesn't have sans as its name. Tahoma, same thing, it's not a sans serif. So just because it doesn't have sans in its name doesn't mean that it's not a sans serif font. So if you scroll through here, you can just look at them and see, do they have little strokes on the end, little feet? And if they don't, it's a sans serif. And if they do, Like here's Bell. It has little strokes on the end. You can see those where the Berlin Sans does not. So this one is a serif. This one is a sans serif. And I could have determined that without having to be told it's sans. All right, so keep that in mind when you're creating any kind of a publication. If you have to do a newsletter or a brochure, you typically want to use sans serif for the headings or headlines, something that's clean, modern, you want to get their attention. And then for all the rest of the text underneath the headings, then you want to use a serif font that have the little feet or the little balls on the ends of the letters. All right, now there are a couple shortcuts for sizes. If I highlight this one, I can obviously come up here and choose the point size. So first of all, let's talk about points. Every point is 1/72 of an inch. So 8 points is 8/72 of an inch. 9 points is 9/72 of an inch. So it's getting larger with the larger the number, all the way until you get to 72. 72 72/72 of an inch is 1 inch. Now most people think, well, that's the highest you can go. Well, that's not true. All you have to do is highlight the text you want to change, come up here, click the drop down, and you type in the number that you want. So let's say that I want 100. So then I'm going to type 100, so that would be larger than an inch because it's 1/72 of an inch. Press the enter key, and now I have a font size of 100. If I want 150, I just click the drop down arrow. When that number is selected, I type my number 150 and press the enter key. So now I have 150 font. So the larger the number, the larger the letter, the smaller the number, the smaller the letters. Okay, so that's one way. It's just by typing it yourself or choosing it from the drop down. You can also choose it from these right here, increase the font size and decrease the font size. You can see right here there is a shortcut, and that is misleading. I have students say, well, I want to do a shortcut to increasing and decreasing font without having to take my hands off the keyboard, grabbing the mouse. And they tried the shortcut, Control and then the greater than sign. But if you look at the keyboard, I've got a picture of a keyboard here. Here's the greater than sign. It's on the period, and the less than sign is on the comma. But you can't just do Control with these keys because you have to use a shift key in order to get the top of any of these keys, just like the number symbols up here. In order to get all of these at the top of the keys, you need the shift key. So really, to use the greater and less than sign, you need to do Control Shift and then the greater than sign to make it larger, or Control Shift and the left arrow. So if I have my font selected here and I try just plain Control greater than sign, nothing happens. But I have to do Control Shift right or greater than sign, and now it comes larger, and Control Shift less than sign makes it smaller. My favorite shortcut, which is not displayed right here, is to use Control, one of the two Control keys, with these brackets right here. They're right above the Enter key and to the left. I'm not using the curly brackets, so I don't have to use the Shift key. I just have the square. So the square is the less than. It's like this one, smaller. The line goes to the left of those horizontal lines. The vertical line is to the left of the horizontal line, so it's less than. And then this one that you grab to the right-hand side, that one is the greater than sign. So if you highlight your text and you try the Control right bracket, it's not the curly one, it's the one on the bottom of the key, so you don't need the Shift key. That makes it larger, and then the Control left bracket makes it smaller. So that's the one that I like, instead of having to use these right here, the Control greater than sign or the Control less than sign, or even taking my hands off the mouse and grabbing it and having to click the font sizes. Since you do that often, it's just easier to use the Control brackets, left and right. Okay, that's it for the fonts. So all you have to do to find your font is click the drop down arrow and just start typing the first letter, and it will jump right to it, and you just have to keep typing the letters until you get to the one that you want. And if you want a larger size than what's listed here, you click the drop down arrow and then you just type what you want, press the enter key, and then if you want to change the font size, you can use the Control left bracket to make it smaller, and you can see as I'm doing that, the size is decreasing. or you can do the control right bracket. You can see it as I do that, the font also increases. Okay, so I hope that helps you find the fonts and change the font sizes a little faster. If you have any questions on anything, let me know. Otherwise, thanks for listening.